The chandeliers blazed like captured stars, casting golden light across the grandest ballroom in all of Valdoria. 500 wolves in human skin danced beneath them, their laughter and music swelling through marble halls that had stood for 1,000 years. The mating ball of the winter moon, the most coveted invitation in the realm. Alawen pressed herself against the servants' corridor wall, her vision swimming. 3 days. It had been 3 days since Lady Helene had permitted her anything more than stale bread crusts and dirty water. Punishment, her aunt had called it, for the unforgivable crime of existing. "Stand straighter," Pippa whispered urgently beside her. "If the head steward sees you swaying, he'll report it to your aunt." Elowen forced her spine to stiffen, though her legs trembled beneath her threadbare servant's dress. Through the archway she could see them, the glittering nobility of the 7 wolf packs, draped in silks and velvet, their eyes bright with the hunt for their fated mates. She was not one of them. She was nothing. "Just 2 more hours," Pippa murmured. "Then we can slip to the kitchens. I saved you a—" "Servants!" The head steward's sharp voice cut through the corridor. "The high table requires more wine. Now." Elowen's hands shook as she lifted the heavy crystal decanter. The weight of it sent spots dancing across her vision. 1 foot before the other. That was all she needed to manage. 1 foot, then another, then another. The ballroom floor stretched before her like an ocean she had to cross. Couples parted around her, barely registering her presence. To them, she was invisible, a ghost moving through their glittering world. She was halfway to the high table when she felt it, a prickling sensation at the back of her neck, like fingertips trailing across her skin. Someone was watching her, not glancing, watching, with an intensity that made her breath catch. Against her better judgment, Elowen lifted her gaze, and the world stopped. He sat at the center of the high table, elevated above all others on a throne of black iron and moonstone, the Alpha King of Valdoria. She had heard whispers of him, Kaelin Blackmere, the youngest king to ever claim the Iron Throne, the wolf who had united the 7 packs through blood and battle before his 25th year. The whispers had not prepared her for the reality. He was carved from shadow and silver, his features sharp enough to cut, his jaw defined beneath a day's worth of dark stubble. Black hair fell across his forehead, and his eyes, gods above, his eyes, were the pale gold of a winter moon, fixed on her with an intensity that stole the air from her lungs. Why is he looking at me? The thought scattered as her vision blurred. The decanter grew impossibly heavy in her grip. Her knees buckled without warning, and the crystal slipped from her fingers. She never hit the ground. Arms caught her. Strong, impossibly fast, wrapping around her waist before she could fall. The decanter shattered somewhere distant, wine spreading like blood across white marble, but Elowen barely registered it. All she could feel was heat, searing, overwhelming heat radiating from the body pressed against hers. "I have you." The voice was low, rough, resonating through her chest like thunder. Elowen forced her eyes open and found herself staring directly into molten gold. The Alpha King held her. The Alpha King of Valdoria had moved from his throne faster than any wolf should be able to move, crossed 30 feet of ballroom in the space between heartbeats, and caught a starving servant girl before she could shatter along with the crystal. "Your Majesty." Someone was speaking, the head steward, his voice high with panic. "Forgive this disgrace. The girl will be punished immediately. I will remove her from your presence. You will not touch her." The words were quiet, but they carried the weight of absolute command. The entire ballroom had fallen silent. 500 wolves stood frozen, watching their king cradle a servant in his arms. "Sire?" The steward's voice cracked. "I said," Kaelin repeated, his golden eyes never leaving Elowen's face. "You will not touch her." Elowen's heart hammered against her ribs. This close, she could see the way his pupils had dilated, consuming the gold until only thin rings remained. His nostrils flared, and she watched shock cross his expression, then recognition, then something darker she couldn't name. "What is your name?" he demanded. Elowen. The word came out as barely a whisper. Elowen Vance. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Vance. The fallen house. The bloodline that had been stripped of its standing 15 years ago when her parents died under mysterious circumstances. Elowen. The king spoke her name like he was tasting it, testing its weight on his tongue. His arm tightened around her waist. "When did you last eat?" The question was so unexpected that she answered honestly. 3 days ago, Your Majesty." Something dangerous flashed in those golden eyes. Alawan felt his chest vibrate against her, a growl, low and barely contained. "Who is responsible for this girl?" His voice rang through the silent ballroom. The crowd parted, and Lady Helene stepped forward, her face pale beneath its powder. "I am her guardian, Your Majesty. Her aunt by marriage. I assure you this display is entirely her own. You starved her." It was not a question. Lady Helene's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Your Majesty, she is merely dramatic. I have given her every—" "I can smell the lie on your breath." The ballroom erupted in whispers. The Alpha King's ability to detect falsehood was legendary, but to use it so publicly, to humiliate a noble before the entire court. "This girl," Kalen continued, his voice dropping to something cold and lethal, "is not leaving this palace tonight. Or any night hereafter." Elowen's heart stopped. "What?" Lady Helene sputtered. "You cannot simply take my ward. I am your king." Kalen finally looked away from Elowen, fixing his golden stare on her aunt with predatory focus. "I can do whatever I wish, and I wish for this woman to remain under my protection." "On what grounds?" Lady Helene demanded, desperation cracking her composure. The Alpha King smiled. It was not a kind smile. "On the grounds that she is mine." The word crashed through Elowen like a wave, drowning out the gasps of the crowd, the pounding of her own heart, everything except the impossible declaration echoing through the marble halls. "Mine." She opened her mouth to protest, to demand an explanation, but darkness was already creeping at the edges of her vision. The last thing she saw before unconsciousness claimed her was the Alpha King's face above hers, golden eyes blazing with fierce possession, and something that looked terrifyingly like triumph. Alawan woke to silk. The sensation was so foreign that for a moment she simply lay there, her cheek pressed against fabric softer than anything she had ever touched. Then memory returned in a flood. The ballroom, the fall, the king's arms around her, his voice declaring. She bolted upright, her heart slamming against her ribs. The chamber surrounding her was larger than the entire servants' quarters she had shared with Pippa. Moonlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows draped in silver damask, illuminating walls painted with scenes of wolves running through midnight forests. The bed beneath her was a vast ocean of white linens and furs, large enough to fit 10 people comfortably. "You're awake." Elowen's gaze snapped to the corner of the room. A woman sat in a high-backed chair, her silver hair coiled atop her head, her weathered face kind despite its sharp angles. She wore the deep blue robes of a royal healer. "Where am I?" Elowen's voice came out rusty, her throat raw. "The King's Tower," the woman replied, rising to pour water from a crystal pitcher. "I am Thessaly, His Majesty's personal physician. You've been unconscious for nearly 14 hours. 14 hours. Elowen pressed a hand to her forehead, fighting the dizziness that still swam through her. "The king," he said. "Drink first." Thessaly pressed the glass into her hands. Then questions. The water was cold and clean, and Elowen had to force herself not to gulp it down like a starving animal. Her stomach cramped painfully, reminding her of its emptiness. Small sips, Thessaly cautioned. Your body needs time to remember how to process food. Speaking of which, she lifted a silver tray from the bedside table, revealing broth and bread. Eat slowly. The king was very specific about your care. The king. Alawan's hands trembled around the glass. Why am I here? Why did he say that I belonged to? The door opened without warning. Alawan felt him before she saw him. That same prickling awareness she had experienced in the ballroom, the sensation of being pinned by an invisible force. Then Kaelin Blackmere stepped into the chamber, and all the air left her lungs. He had changed from his formal attire into simpler clothing, black trousers, a white shirt open at the collar. But he looked no less dangerous. If anything, the casual dress emphasized the predatory power coiled in every line of his body. Leave us, he said to Thessaly. The healer bowed and departed without a word. The door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded to Eowyn like the ceiling of a tomb. You should be eating. The king's gaze dropped to the untouched tray. Thessaly will be displeased. Why am I here? The question burst out before Eowyn could stop it. She clutched the glass tightly, using it as an anchor against the trembling that threatened to overtake her body. Kaelin moved closer. Each step was measured, deliberate, like a wolf approaching prey he did not wish to startle. When he reached the edge of the bed, he stopped, his golden eyes roaming her face with unsettling intensity. You are here, he said slowly, because I brought you here. Yes, I gathered that much. The words came out sharper than she intended. What I don't understand is why. I'm no one. A servant. Less than that, actually. I'm a ward of a minor noble who would happily see me dead. Why would the Alpha King of Valdoria publicly claim? Do you not feel it? The question stopped her cold. Feel what? His jaw tightened. Frustration crossed his expression, or perhaps something more vulnerable. When I touched you, in the ballroom, did you feel nothing? Eowyn's mouth went dry. She had felt something. The overwhelming heat. The way her heart had raced beyond the simple explanation of fear. The strange pull toward him that even now hummed beneath her skin. I don't know what you're talking about, she lied. You forget that I can smell deception. Heat flooded Eowyn's cheeks. Then perhaps you should stop asking questions you already know the answers to. For a moment, Kaelin simply stared at her. Then, unexpectedly, the corner of his mouth twitched. You have a sharp tongue for someone in such a precarious position. Precarious position? Eowyn's spine stiffened. Is that what this is? Am I a prisoner? You are a guest. Guests can leave. Then leave. Kaelin stepped back, gesturing toward the door. If that is what you truly wish, I will not stop you. You may walk out of this chamber, out of this palace, and return to your aunt's care. Eowyn froze. The offer hung in the air between them, genuine despite its impossibility. She thought of Lady Helene's cold fury, the punishments that would await her for causing such a public scene, the slow starvation that had become her existence. She did not move. Something shifted in Kaelin's expression, softening almost imperceptibly. He lowered himself into the chair Thessaly had vacated, bringing his eyes closer to her level. I frightened you tonight, he said quietly. That was not my intention. You claimed me in front of 500 people. Eowyn's voice wavered despite her efforts to keep it steady. What exactly was your intention? The king was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was low enough that she had to lean forward to hear it. 23 years ago, before I was born, a seer came to my father's court. She prophesied that the Blackmere line would end with me unless I found my fated mate before my 30th year. His golden eyes held hers, unblinking. I turn 30 at the winter solstice, 12 days from now. Eowyn's blood turned to ice. You think I'm... I don't think. Kalen cut her off, something fierce burning in his gaze. I know. The moment I caught you, the moment your scent filled my lungs, my wolf recognized what you are. He leaned closer, and Elowen's breath caught as she felt the heat radiating from him once more. You are my mate, Elowen Vance, the one the moon created for me. The words should have been romantic. Instead, they filled her with cold terror. That's impossible, she whispered. I'm not even a wolf. His expression shifted with something she could not read. No, he agreed softly. You're something far more interesting. Before Elowen could demand an explanation, the chamber doors burst open. A guard rushed in, his face pale with urgency. Your Majesty, forgive the intrusion. Lady Helene has petitioned the council. She's demanding the girl be returned to her custody immediately. Kalen's eyes never left Elowen's face, but his voice, when he spoke, was cold enough to freeze the very air. Let her try. The council chamber sat deep within the palace's eastern wing, a circular room of black marble and silver veins that seemed to pulse in the candlelight. 7 chairs surrounded a crescent table, occupied by the 7 pack leaders who advised the crown. Elowen stood at the room's center, feeling like a lamb surrounded by wolves, which, she supposed, was exactly what she was. This is highly irregular. Lord Aldrich Thorne, Alpha of the Northern Pack, leaned forward with barely concealed disdain. You cannot simply claim a human at the mating ball. The laws are clear. The laws, Kalen interrupted from his position at the head of the table, state that a king may protect any citizen of Valdoria who faces unjust treatment. This woman was starved nearly to death by her guardian. I am exercising my royal prerogative. Royal prerogative does not extend to declaring a human your property. Lady Helene spoke up from her position at the petitioner's stand. Her face was carefully composed, but Elowen could see the fury simmering beneath the surface. My niece is troubled. She has always been prone to dramatics, to manipulation. She weighs less than a child of 12, Kalen cut in coldly. I could count her ribs through her dress. Murmurs rippled through the council. Elowen kept her gaze fixed on the floor, shame burning in her cheeks. She had not asked for any of this, not the public humiliation of her condition, not the king's inexplicable interest, not the horror of having her life debated by strangers. Even if we accept that Lady Helene's care was insufficient, said another council member, a woman with copper hair and calculating eyes. The king's solution raises troubling questions. You claim this girl is your fated mate, Your Majesty. Yet she bears no mark, carries no scent of wolf. How is such a thing possible? That is not the council's concern. It most certainly is. Lord Thorne's lip curled. You expect us to accept a human queen? The bloodline of Blackmere diluted with... Careful. The single word sliced through the chamber like a blade. Kalen had not raised his voice, but the threat in it was unmistakable. You speak of your future queen. Choose your next words with extreme care. The silence that followed was suffocating. I refuse. Her own voice startled her. Every head in the chamber turned toward her, and Elowen felt her cheeks flame, but she lifted her chin and continued. Whatever the king believes about fate or mates, I have not agreed to anything. You cannot make decisions about my life as if I have no say in the matter. Lord Thorne's eyes glittered with cruel amusement. Well, the mouse has a voice. She speaks correctly, Lady Helene said quickly, seizing the opening. Elowen is clearly overwhelmed. She needs familiar surroundings, proper care. Allow me to take her home and... No. Kalen rose from his chair. The movement was slow, controlled, but something about it made every wolf in the room tense. The girl has made her objection heard, he said, moving around the table toward Elowen. And she is correct. She has not agreed to be my queen. That is her right. Elowen felt a flicker of relief, quickly drowned by confusion as Kalen stopped directly in front of her. However, his golden eyes bore into hers. She does not wish to return to Lady Helene's care, do you, Elowen? The question was a trap. She could see it clearly. If she said no, she remained in the king's power. If she said yes, she returned to slow starvation and certain punishment. I wish, she said carefully, to make my own choices about my own life. Something that might have been approval crossed Kalen's face. Then I propose a compromise. He turned to address the council, though his body remained angled toward Elowen, close enough that she could feel the heat of him. Elowen Vance will remain in the palace as a guest of the crown for 30 days. During that time, she will be given every comfort, every freedom to come and go as she pleases. If at the end of those 30 days she wishes to leave, she will be provided with a generous settlement and safe passage to wherever she desires. Lord Thorne scowled. And what of the prophecy? The solstice is in 12 days, not 30. Then I suppose, Kalen said quietly, I had better be persuasive. His gaze returned to Elowen, and she felt the full weight of his attention like a physical force. There was heat there, and promise, and something wild lurking beneath the surface. The council erupted in arguments, but Elowen barely heard them. All she could think about was the 12 days now hanging over her head like a blade. 12 days until the solstice, 12 days to determine the fate of a king. That evening, Elowen stood at the window of her new chambers, her forehead pressed against the cold glass. The moonflowers bloomed beneath her window, their petals unfurling in the darkness, and beyond them, the great forest stretched toward the mountains like an ocean of shadow. Food sat untouched on the table behind her, more food than she had seen in months, but her stomach was too knotted for hunger. You are my mate, Elowen Vance. The words echoed through her mind, refusing to release her. She knew the stories, of course. Everyone did. Fated mates were sacred among wolves, two souls bound by the moon goddess herself, destined to complete each other across lifetimes. But those stories were about wolves. She was human. Completely, utterly human. Wasn't she? A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Before she could respond, the door opened and Pippa rushed in, her round face flushed with exertion. Elowen! Her friend threw her arms around her. I've been trying to reach you for hours. The servants' quarters are buzzing. Everyone's talking about how the king... I know. Elowen returned the embrace tightly. I was there. Pippa pulled back, her eyes wide. Is it true? Did he really call you his mate in front of the entire council? He believes I am. Elowen sank onto the edge of the bed, suddenly exhausted. He's mistaken, obviously. Whatever he sensed, whatever made him think. When? Pippa's voice was strangely serious. Have you ever wondered why Lady Helene hates you so much? The question caught Elowen off guard. Because I'm a burden. Because my parents died and left me in her care when she never wanted. No. Pippa sat beside her, lowering her voice. I've been in that household for 6 years. She doesn't just resent you. She fears you. I've seen the way she watches you sometimes. Like she's waiting for something terrible to happen. A chill crept down Elowen's spine. What are you saying? I'm saying that maybe the king isn't as mistaken as you think. Maybe there's something about you that... The door burst open. Kalen stood in the doorway, his chest heaving, his golden eyes wild. Behind him, Thessaly and 2 guards scrambled to keep up. Sire, please, the healer was saying, this is most improper. But the king wasn't listening. His focus was fixed entirely on Elowen, his nostrils flaring as he drew in deep breaths. You're distressed. The words came out rough, almost guttural. I felt it. Through the bond. I felt. He stopped, seeming to catch himself. Some of the wildness faded from his eyes, replaced by something like embarrassment. Forgive me? He straightened, visibly forcing composure. I should not have. The bond is new. I am still learning to control the connection. Elowen stared at him. You felt my emotions? From across the palace? It is not a skill I can turn off. He ran a hand through his dark hair, the gesture strangely vulnerable. When you are upset, I feel a pull. A need to. To what? His jaw tightened. To protect you. To fix whatever is causing you pain. The admission hung between them, heavy with implications. Elowen's heart was racing again, and she watched his nostrils flare as if he could smell the change in her body. Perhaps, Thessaly suggested delicately, the king might continue this conversation in the morning. The lady has had an overwhelming day. Kaelin nodded stiffly, but as he turned to leave, he paused at the threshold. Elowen. She looked up. The bond between mates. It is not one-sided. His golden eyes held hers across the room. In time, you will feel me too. My emotions. My needs. He paused, and something dangerous flickered in his expression. My hunger. Then he was gone, the door closing behind him, leaving Elowen trembling on the edge of her bed with Pippa's hand gripping hers. When? Pippa whispered. What have you gotten yourself into? Elowen shook her head slowly, her heart still pounding from the intensity of his parting words. She had no answer, but deep in her chest, in a place she had never acknowledged before, something was beginning to stir, something that recognized the call of his wolf, and was desperate to answer. 3 days passed in the palace, and Elowen spent each one waiting for the other shoe to drop. It never did. True to his word, Kaelin gave her complete freedom. She wandered the gardens when she pleased, explored the vast palace library, ate meals that made her weep with their richness. No one stopped her. No one questioned her. The servants treated her with careful deference, as if she were already the queen their king had named her. But it was the king himself who confused her most. He did not push, did not demand, did not use his obvious power to bend her to his will. Instead, he simply appeared, in the library when she was reading, in the gardens when she walked among the moonflowers, at meals where he sat at her table and asked questions about her childhood, her interests, her dreams. You're trying to seduce me? She accused him on the third morning, when she found him waiting with fresh pastries outside her chambers. I'm trying to know you, he corrected. There is a difference. Is there? Those golden eyes crinkled with something that might have been amusement. I am a king, Elowen. If I wanted to seduce you, I would simply command it. You cannot command desire. No. He stepped closer, and she felt that pull again, the inexplicable gravity drawing her toward him. That is precisely why I have not tried. He left her standing in her doorway with warm pastries in her hands and heat blooming in her cheeks. Each night, alone in her chambers, Elowen examined the strange sensations building inside her. The king had been right. She was beginning to feel the bond. It started as whispers, a flutter of contentment when she knew he was near, a twist of anxiety when she sensed his stress. By the third night, she could pinpoint his location in the palace simply by focusing on that invisible thread connecting them. It should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like coming home. You're not eating. Thessaly's voice startled her from her thoughts. The healer had taken to visiting her chambers each evening under the guise of checking her recovery, though Elowen suspected the king had asked her to watch for signs of distress. I'm not hungry tonight, Elowen admitted. Thessaly studied her with knowing eyes. Your body is changing, adapting. It requires fuel even when your mind doesn't recognize it. Changing? Elowen set down her fork. What do you mean, changing? The healer hesitated. Has the king spoken to you about what you are? He said I was something interesting. Elowen's jaw tightened at the memory. He never explained what he meant. It is not my place. Please. Elowen reached for the older woman's hand. Everyone in this palace seems to know something about me that I don't. I'm tired of being kept in the dark. Thessaly was silent for a long moment. Then she sighed. When you collapsed in the ballroom, I examined you thoroughly. Your body shows no signs of wolf heritage, no heightened senses, no accelerated healing, no shifting capability. Then how can I be his mate? That is the question. Thessaly's weathered face was troubled. There is a power in you, Elowen. Something dormant. Something suppressed. I believe it has been bound since childhood. Cold washed through Elowen's veins. Bound? By whom? That I cannot say. But the bond with the king is awakening it. Whatever was locked away inside you is beginning to stir. Elowen's hands trembled. She thought of Pippa's words. She doesn't just resent you. She fears you. What happens when it wakes fully? Thessaly shook her head slowly. I don't know. No one does. Whatever you are, child. It has not been seen in a very long time. That night, Elowen dreamed. She stood in a forest of silver trees, their bark gleaming like moonlight made solid. A wolf waited for her at the path's end, massive, black as midnight, with eyes of burning gold. Kaelin. She knew it was him without being told. He approached slowly, his great head lowered, and pressed his muzzle against her palm. The touch sent fire racing through her veins. Mine. His voice echoed in her mind. Finally mine. Elowen's fingers curled into his fur. I don't understand what's happening to me. You're awakening. His wolf eyes held hers. What was stolen is returning. What was stolen? The dream shattered. Elowen gasped awake to find Kaelin in her chamber, not the wolf, but the man, standing rigid at the foot of her bed. His face was pale, his golden eyes wide. You were in my dreams, he breathed. You shouldn't be able to. That level of bond takes years to. Get out. Elowen scrambled upright, her heart hammering. You can't just enter my room in the middle of the night. I didn't enter. I was already here. He shook his head, looking almost dazed. My body walked here while I slept. The bond pulled me to you. Elowen stared at him. In the moonlight streaming through her windows, she could see that he wore only sleep pants, his chest bare, his feet unshod. He truly had walked here unconsciously, drawn by whatever impossible connection existed between them. This cannot continue, she whispered. No. He moved toward her, and she found she couldn't retreat. It can only deepen. Kaelin, say it again. His voice had dropped, rough and hungry. My name. Say it. Kaelin. The word left her lips before she could stop it. He shuddered, his eyes closing briefly. When they opened, the gold had swallowed the black entirely, and he was looking at her like a man dying of thirst. I am trying, he rasped, to give you time, to let you choose this. But the bond, my wolf. He broke off, his hands fisting at his sides. Elowen could see the tremors running through his body, the visible effort of his restraint. What does your wolf want? She heard herself ask. Wrong question. She knew it the moment the words left her mouth. Kaelin moved faster than she could track. One moment he stood at the foot of her bed. The next, he was before her, his hands cupping her face, his breath hot against her lips. My wolf wants to claim you. His voice was barely human, a growl wrapped in words. To mark you. To make you mine in a way that can never be undone. Elowen's heart should have frozen in terror. Instead, it raced with something far more dangerous. And what do you want? She whispered. The same. His forehead dropped to rest against hers. Gods help me, the same. His lips found hers. The kiss was not gentle. It was claiming, devouring, a possession as total as any spoken vow. Elowen's hands found his shoulders, meaning to push him away. But instead, her fingers dug into his skin, pulling him closer. Heat exploded through her body, not the comfortable warmth of the bond, but something molten and overwhelming. She felt something shift inside her, something cracking open like ice in spring. Kalen groaned against her mouth. His hands slid from her face to her waist, lifting her, pressing her back into the pillows as his body covered hers. And then, his teeth scraped her throat. The sensation sent lightning through her veins. Something inside Elowyn screamed yes and no simultaneously. Her body arched toward him even as her mind screamed warning. Kalen, wait. He froze. For a long, terrible moment, he remained perfectly still, his mouth against her pulse point, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Then, with what seemed like agonizing effort, he pulled back. His eyes were wild, more wolf than man. A thin line of blood marked his lower lip where his fangs had descended. "I'm sorry." The words were guttural, barely intelligible. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." He was gone before she could respond, the door slamming behind him, leaving Elowyn alone in her tangled sheets with her heart pounding and her body aching, and a single terrifying truth crystallizing in her mind. She wanted him to come back. She wanted him to finish what he'd started, and whatever was awakening inside her wanted it even more. Elowyn did not sleep again that night. She sat by her window, watching the moon trace its path across the sky, her fingers pressed to the spot on her throat where Kalen's teeth had grazed her skin. The flesh tingled there, sensitive in a way it had never been before. To mark you, to make you mine in a way that can never be undone. She should have been horrified. She should have fled the palace at dawn, taken the king's offered settlement, and disappeared to somewhere his bond couldn't reach. But even as she thought it, she knew it was impossible. The thread connecting them was no longer a whisper. It was a rope, a chain, an anchor embedded in her very soul. As dawn began to lighten the sky, a soft knock came at her door. "My lady, the king requests your presence in the throne room. It's urgent." Elowyn rose on unsteady legs. Whatever awaited her, she would face it. But as she followed the servant through the winding palace corridors, she felt something new through the bond. Not the king's usual controlled presence, but something sharp and cold. Fear. The Alpha King of Valdoria was afraid. And somehow Elowyn knew with terrible certainty that his fear had everything to do with her. The throne room was cold. Elowyn had passed through these halls before, grand corridors of black marble and silver filigree, but she had never entered the seat of Valdorian power. Twin rows of columns stretched toward a dais where the Iron Throne waited, its dark metal gleaming with embedded moonstones that pulsed with faint light. Kalen stood before the throne, his back to her. He was dressed for war, black leather armor, twin blades crossed at his spine, and something about his rigid posture made the fear she felt through their bond sharpen into ice. "Kalen?" Her voice echoed in the vast chamber. "What's happened?" He turned, and Elowyn's breath caught. His face was carved from stone, but his eyes, those golden eyes that had burned with desire mere hours ago, were hollow with dread. "There's been an attack." His voice was flat, controlled. 3 villages on the eastern border, slaughtered in the night. Elowyn's hand flew to her mouth. Wolves? Something far worse. He descended the dais steps, each movement precise and deliberate. "Have you ever heard of the Hollow Ones?" The name stirred something in Elowyn's memory, whispered stories from childhood, tales told to frighten naughty children. Wolves who have lost their souls, who feed on the life force of others. Not lost. Kalen stopped before her, close enough that she could see the tension corded in his neck. Stolen. There is a ritual, ancient and forbidden, that can rip the soul from a wolf and leave behind only hunger, only destruction. "Why are you telling me this?" His jaw tightened. "Because the attacks weren't random. The villages that were struck, they formed a line, a path. A path to where? Here. His golden eyes bore into hers. To you. The words didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense. That's impossible. No one even knew I existed until 4 days ago. Someone knew. Kaylin's hand rose to cup her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone with desperate gentleness. Someone has always known, and they're coming for you, Eloin. Before she could respond, the throne room doors crashed open. Lord Thorne strode in, his face thunderous. Behind him came Lady Helene, flanked by 2 council members whose names Eloin had never learned. Your Majesty. Thorne's voice dripped with barely concealed satisfaction. We have completed our investigation into the attacks. The trail of destruction leads directly to the palace. More specifically, his gaze shifted to Eloin with cold triumph. To her. That's absurd, Kaelin growled. Is it? Lady Helene stepped forward, her composure cracking to reveal something ugly beneath. My niece has always attracted misfortune. Death follows her like a shadow. First her parents, now these villages. My parents died in an accident, Eloin interrupted, her voice shaking. Did they? Her aunt's smile was sharp as broken glass. Is that what you believe? The throne room fell silent. Eloin felt the blood drain from her face. What are you saying? I'm saying, dear niece, that your parents didn't die in a carriage accident. Lady Helene's eyes glittered with 15 years of hoarded resentment. They were executed, by order of the previous Alpha King himself. No. The word came out as a whisper. That's a lie. Your father was a scholar who discovered something he shouldn't have. Your mother was... Helene paused, savoring the moment. Something that should never have existed. And you, Eloin, are the abomination they created together. Kaelin moved between them, his body a wall of protective fury. Enough. The people deserve to know what you've brought into your palace. Lord Thorne's voice rang through the chamber. What you've claimed as your mate. She is the daughter of a luminary, a creature of pure moonlight that hasn't walked this realm in 1,000 years. Her very existence is an affront to the natural order. Luminary. The word resonated through Eloin's chest like a bell being struck. Something inside her recognized it, responded to it, stirred in its sleep. Her power was bound at birth, Helene continued relentlessly. But the binding is failing. Every day she remains near the king. Their bond feeds her awakening. And when she fully emerges, she will be magnificent. Kaelin's voice cut through her aunt's poisonous words like a blade. She will be exactly what she was born to be. He turned to face Eloin, and in his eyes she saw no fear, no hesitation, only fierce, burning certainty. I don't care what you are, he said quietly for her ears alone. I don't care what they say. You are mine, Eloin. Nothing will change that. Kaelin, the Hollow Ones are coming for you. They want your power, your light. I will not let them have it. His hands framed her face, his forehead pressing to hers. But I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Every rational part of Eloin screamed that this was madness. She had known this man for 4 days. 4 days of confusion and fear and this impossible, consuming bond that defied all logic. But beneath the fear, beneath the doubt, something deeper spoke. He is yours, it whispered, as you are his. Yes, she breathed. I trust you. Relief flooded his features. Then his expression shifted, becoming something primal and urgent. The binding on your power is cracking, he said rapidly. When it breaks completely, the surge will be overwhelming. It could destroy you, unless you have an anchor. An anchor? A mate bond. Completed. His golden eyes searched hers. I need to mark you, Eloin. Tonight. Now. It's the only way to ensure you survive what's coming. Behind them, Lord Thorne sputtered in outrage. Lady Helene let out a shriek of protest. But Elowyn heard none of it. All she could see was Kaelin. All she could feel was the truth of his words resonating through every fiber of her being. "Do it," she whispered. He didn't hesitate. His mouth found her throat, and this time there was no gentle scraping, no teasing graze. His teeth sank deep into the junction of her neck and shoulder, and Elowyn's scream of pain transformed into something else entirely. Light exploded through her body, pure, blinding, magnificent light. She felt the binding that had caged her power for 23 years shatter like chains of glass. She felt Kaelin's soul crash into hers, two halves of something ancient finally made whole. And she felt, with terrible clarity, the hollow ones at the palace gates. They had arrived. The light faded slowly, leaving Elowyn gasping in Kaelin's arms. Everything was different. The world had sharpened into crystalline focus. She could hear heartbeats echoing through the palace, smell the fear and fury rolling off the gathered council members, feel the moonlight streaming through the high windows like a caress against her skin. "Elowyn." Kaelin's voice was rough, awed. "Your eyes." She caught her reflection in the polished surface of his armor. Her eyes, once a common brown, now shimmered with silver light, like the moon itself had taken residence behind her gaze. "The hollow ones," she breathed, the knowledge flooding through her newly awakened senses. "They're inside the walls." Kaelin's expression hardened. He released her gently but kept one hand wrapped around hers, their bond humming between them like a live wire. "How many?" Elowyn closed her eyes, reaching toward the darkness pressing against the edges of her awareness. Cold, empty, hungry. The hollow ones were voids in the fabric of existence. "Dozens." Her voice trembled. "They're in the eastern wing, the servants' quarters." "Pippa." The name tore from her throat. Her friend, her only friend, sleeping in those very quarters. "Guards!" Kaelin's roar echoed through the throne room. "Eastern wing, now!" But even as warriors poured from the shadows, Elowyn felt something worse. A presence behind the hollow ones, controlling them, directing their hunger. A presence she recognized. Aunt Helene. She turned to face the woman who had made her life a misery for 15 years. But Lady Helene was no longer cowering. She stood tall, her eyes gleaming with triumphant malice. "You finally see it, don't you?" Her aunt's voice had changed, deepening into something ancient and wrong. "Took you long enough, little light. You created them." Horror curdled in Elowyn's stomach. "The hollow ones. You made them. I harvested them." Helene began to circle the throne room, one soul at a time, over 15 long years, building my army, waiting for your power to ripen. "Why?" "Because luminaries cannot be killed, little niece. Not truly, but their power can be consumed." Helene's smile stretched too wide, inhuman. "Your mother refused to give hers willingly. She died protecting you, pouring the last of her light into a binding that would keep you hidden until you came of age." Tears streamed down Elowyn's face. "You murdered my parents." "I executed them for the crime of creating you." Helene's form began to shift, shadows coiling around her like living things. "A half-breed abomination with power enough to reshape the world. She's not a weapon." Kaelin stepped forward, his twin blades singing from their sheaths. "She's my mate." "Your mate?" Helene laughed, the sound like breaking bones. "You stupid lovesick boy, you've just made this easier. The bond between you will channel her power directly to me when I consume her." The shadows around Helene exploded outward. Kaelin moved to intercept, his blades carving silver arcs through the darkness. But more shadows came, endless waves of them, driving him back. "Kaelin!" Elowyn reached for him through the bond and felt his response. Love, fierce and unwavering, even in the face of impossible odds. "Run." His voice echoed in her mind. Find Thessaly. She knows what to do. I won't leave you. You must. His mental voice cracked with desperation. If she takes your power, everyone dies. Promise me. The shadows closed around him, and Eloan felt his pain lance through their bond like a blade to her own flesh. No! She screamed, light erupting from her hands instinctively. The shadows recoiled. For one glorious moment she saw Kalen break free, his golden eyes finding hers across the chaos. Then Helene's power slammed into her. Eloan crashed against a pillar, her vision swimming. She felt cold hands grasp her arms, dragging her toward the darkness. Such pretty light, Helene crooned, her face inches from Eloan's. Let's see how it tastes. Teeth, sharp and wrong, descended toward her throat. Then fire exploded through the throne room. Not Eloan's silver light. This was gold and crimson, the flames of a wolf pushed beyond all limits. Kalen's war cry shook the marble walls as he tore through the shadows, his body half-shifted into something monstrous and magnificent. He ripped Eloan from Helene's grasp and ran, the world blurred around them. Corridors, staircases, hidden passages. Kalen moved with the speed of desperation, his arms locked around Eloan like iron bands. Don't let go, he gasped, blood streaming from wounds she could feel through their bond. Whatever happens, don't let go of me. Never, she promised. They burst through a hidden door into the night air. The palace garden stretched before them, silver moonflowers glowing beneath the full moon. And waiting in the center of the garden, surrounded by a circle of ancient stones, stood Thessaly. Quickly, the healer commanded, into the circle. It's the only place her darkness cannot reach. Kalen staggered forward, his strength finally failing. They collapsed together at the circle's center, and Eloan felt ancient power rise around them like a shield. You're hurt. Her hands found his wounds, deep gashes that wept crimson across his chest. Kalen, you're dying. Worth it. His bloodied hand cupped her face, leaving streaks across her cheek. You're safe. That's all that matters. Don't you dare. Tears blurred her vision. Don't you dare leave me. I just found you. His smile was heartbreaking. My brave luminary. My light. His eyes began to close. No. Eloan pressed her hands to his chest, willing the silver light within her to heal, to save, to do anything but let him slip away. Thessaly, help me. I cannot. The healer's voice was heavy with grief. His wounds are beyond my skill. The only thing that could save him now is a luminary's full power. But you haven't learned to control it. The surge would kill you both. Eloan stared down at Kalen's pale face, felt his heartbeat growing fainter through their bond. She had a choice. Let him die, and survive to fight another day, or pour everything she had into saving him and risk destroying them both. It wasn't a choice at all. Eloan, no. Thessaly's hand gripped her shoulder. You don't understand what you're attempting. I understand perfectly. Eloan's voice was steady despite the terror coursing through her. I'm saving my mate. A luminary's full awakening is not a gentle thing. The power your mother bound, it has been compressed for 23 years. Releasing it all at once could tear you apart from the inside. Then tell me how to control it. Thessaly's weathered face crumpled. Your mother was the last luminary, and even she... My mother gave her life to protect me. Eloan pressed her hands more firmly against Kalen's chest, feeling the sluggish flutter of his heart. Now I'm going to use that gift to protect him. Tell me what you know. Beyond the circle, shadows gathered. Helene's army, waiting for the shield to fall. Your power is moonlight made flesh, Thessaly said finally. It responds to emotion, to intention. But it has no natural limits. That is both its gift and its danger. If you open yourself to it completely, you must find something to anchor you. Something strong enough to hold you to this world when the light tries to consume you. Eloan looked down at Kalen's face. his sharp features softened by unconsciousness. I have my anchor. The bond is still forming. It may not be enough. It will be. Elowin leaned down, pressing her forehead to Kaylan's. Because I refuse to let it be anything else. She closed her eyes and reached for the light. It came like a flood. Everything her mother had given her, everything that had been locked away and suppressed and denied, it poured through her in a torrent of pure, devastating radiance. Elowin screamed as her body became a vessel for power that should never have been contained in mortal flesh. Too much, some distant part of her mind whispered. It's too much. But then she felt Kalen. His soul, tethered to hers by the bond they had forged, pulled her back from the edge of oblivion. She felt his love, stubborn, fierce, unwavering, wrapping around her like armor. I have you, my light. Elowin gripped that connection with everything she had and directed the flood of power into him. She watched his wounds close, tissue knitting together beneath her glowing hands. She felt his heartbeat strengthen, his breathing deepen, his presence in the bond surge back to full brilliance. But the power wasn't stopping. It continued to pour through her, more and more, building toward a crescendo she couldn't contain. The ancient stones around them began to crack. The ground trembled beneath their bodies. Elowin. Thessaly's voice seemed to come from very far away. You must stop. You'll destroy everything. She couldn't stop. The light had its own momentum now, its own terrible purpose. Elowin. Kalen's voice cut through the chaos. Not weak now, but strong, commanding. His hands caught her wrists, his golden eyes blazing into her silver ones. Come back to me. I can't. The power is yours. It belongs to you, not the other way around. His grip tightened. You are not your mother's sacrifice. You are not a weapon. You are Elowin Vance, and you are my mate. And I am telling you to stop. Something in his voice, the absolute certainty, the unshakable authority, pierced through the light's hold on her. Elowin gasped, and the power contracted. It didn't disappear. She could still feel it humming beneath her skin, vast and terrible and beautiful. But it was hers now, truly hers. You did it. Thessaly's voice was hushed with wonder. No luminary has ever learned to control the full awakening so quickly. I had motivation. Elowin sagged against Kalen's chest. His arms came around her instantly. You saved me. His voice rumbled beneath her ear. You extraordinary woman. That's what mates do. His laugh was rough, broken with emotion. Then his mouth found hers and Elowin forgot about the gathering shadows. When they finally broke apart, Kalen's expression had hardened. Helene is still out there. I know. Elowin rose to her feet. The power within her had settled into a steady glow. But she made a mistake. What mistake? Elowin looked toward the shadows massing at the circle's edge. She thought consuming my light would make her powerful. Her eyes blazed silver. She didn't realize that my light can burn. The ancient stones crumbled as Elowin stepped beyond their protection. Elowin, wait. Kalen scrambled to his feet. You can't face her alone. I'm not alone. She turned to look at him. Her silver eyes softened with love. I have you. But this is something I need to do. If you die, he said roughly, I follow. Then I suppose I'd better not die. She walked into the darkness. The hollow ones surrounded her instantly, forms flickering between wolf and shadow. They should have terrified her. Instead, Elowin felt only pity. You were wolves once. You had souls. The nearest lunged. Light erupted from her palm, catching it mid-leap. It shrieked, agony and relief, and dissolved into motes that drifted upward like freed spirits. Rest now. She moved through the garden like vengeance wrapped in starlight. Each hollow one met the same fate, not destruction, but release. Impressive. Lady Helene emerged from the shadows, a twisted thing of darkness, her eyes pits of absolute black. You've learned quickly, little niece. I understand enough. You murdered my parents. You tortured me for 15 years. You've killed thousands. All for this moment. All for you. Then come and take me. Helene attacked. Light and shadow collided. Elowen felt the impact in her bones as Helene's stolen power crashed against hers. The darkness was vast, 15 years of harvested souls, pressing against her light with crushing weight. She's stronger than me. You can. Kaylin's voice cut through her despair, pouring strength through the bond. Not magic, but something deeper. Love. Faith. You are not fighting alone. Elowen drew on that strength and pushed back. She thought of her mother's sacrifice, her father's courage. She thought of Kaylin, his protection, his patience. She thought of the future she wanted. And she burned. The light that exploded was not silver, but gold, the pure radiance of the sun. It tore through Helene's darkness, dissolving shadows, freeing souls. Helene screamed, predator finally becoming prey. She tried to flee, but there were no shadows left. Please, I'm your family. My family loved me. My family died protecting me. You are nothing but the monster who destroyed them. She raised her hand. Wait! Pippa stumbled through the ruined garden. There's something you need to know. The binding your mother created. It wasn't just to hide your power. Helene captured part of your mother's light, her essence. That's what's been powering the Hollow Ones. Your mother's soul is trapped inside her. Elowen's blood turned to ice. She looked at Helene with her newly awakened senses, and saw it. A flicker of silver beneath the darkness. A familiar warmth buried under corruption. Her mother. Still suffering. If you destroy me, Helene rasped, you destroy her too. The choice was impossible. Whatever you decide, I stand with you. Elowen closed her eyes. The weight of the decision pressed down like mountains. And then she felt something else through the light. A touch. Gentle. Familiar. My darling girl. Elowen's eyes flew open. Within the golden radiance a form coalesced. A woman made of silver light. Mother? You've grown so beautiful. So strong. I don't know how to save you. You already have. By awakening your power, you've weakened my chains. I can finally break free. Then come with me. My time ended 15 years ago. I stayed only to protect you. Ghostly fingers brushed Elowen's cheek. You have found your mate. You will build a beautiful life. Please don't leave me. I never left. I was with you in every sunrise, in every moonbeam, in every dream where you felt home. Tears poured down Elowen's face. I love you. I know, my darling. I always knew. Her mother's form began to dissolve, but not before facing Helene one final time. Helene. The word was quiet, sad. I forgive you. The silver light exploded outward, merging with Elowen's gold, creating radiance so brilliant it turned night into day across the kingdom. When the light faded, Helene was gone, not destroyed, transformed. A small silver flower grew where she had stood. A prison of beauty for a soul too corrupted to be freed. Elowen sank to her knees. Arms caught her. I have you. Kaylin's voice was rough with tears. I have you, my light. She buried her face in his chest and wept. Is it over? The battle is over. He pressed his lips to her hair. Everything else is just beginning. Dawn broke over Valdoria in shades of rose and gold. Elowen stood on the balcony of the king's tower, their tower now, watching light spill across a kingdom changed forever. You should be resting. Kaylin's arms wrapped around her from behind. Through their completed bond, she felt his contentment, his love. I couldn't sleep. Too much to process. His lips found the mark on her throat. The council is demanding an audience. Questions about what you are. About whether a luminary can truly be queen. About whether the queen will blind them if they annoy her. She heard his smile. Lord Thorne nearly fainted. Eowyn laughed. Good. He was rude to me. Kaelin turned her in his arms. How are you? Truly. I'm grieving. For the mother I never knew. For the years I lost. She touched his face. But I'm also grateful. Because that girl collapsed from hunger. And the most powerful man in the kingdom caught her. And refused to let go. He finished softly. I didn't understand then. But you knew, didn't you? From the very first moment? My wolf knew. The rest of me just had to catch up. His smile was devastating. Now I thank the moon every moment for sending you stumbling into my arms. I cannot imagine a world where you are not beside me. I look at you and see everything I have ever wanted. Kaelin, I love you, Eowyn Vance. I loved you when you were a starving servant who dared to snap at a king. I loved you when you trembled in my arms. I loved you when you walked into darkness alone. And I will love you for every day of forever. Eowyn's eyes burned with tears, not grief, but joy. I'll let you, on one condition. Name it. Love me even when I accidentally blind council members who annoy me. His laughter rang across the morning air as he swept her into his arms. My terrifying queen, he murmured against her lips. I wouldn't have it any other way. When he kissed her, Eowyn felt the bond sing with completion. Two souls eternally intertwined, a king who had found his light, a luminary who had found her home. And in the garden below, beside the silver flower that had once been a monster, a new moonflower bloomed, its petals shimmering with the same radiance that now lived in Eowyn's eyes, her mother's final gift. A reminder that love never truly dies. It only transforms. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the story. A big thank you to everyone who's following. Your support truly means the world to me.